Many years ago, before leaving one parish assignment to take on another, a parishioner and friend stopped by my office to give me a small parting gift. It was a coffee mug. And the gift was not so much the mug, but the quote from Winston Churchill that appears on it. The quote reads, "So you've made enemies. Good. It means you stood for something." Our relationship as pastor and parishioner didn't start out very smoothly. He believed I was ignoring a pastoral request he had made, and a very legitimate one, while I believed that I was giving it due attention once I had a free hour to spend on his request. Our timelines and our expectations didn't intersect very well. But what started out as a rocky relationship became a solid friendship, and his gift of the Churchill quote was meant to be affirmation of my work, at the same time a slight dig, and at the same time a reminder that we all can improve. Well, the cup sits on my shelf at the seminary, where every so often I'm forced to look at it and reconcile myself to the fact I either have or had to make a tough decision that will leave some people unhappy. And it also reminds me of the realization that there were things that I didn't do as well as I could or should. Even now, after all these years, I look at it from time to time and realize, like us all, there were some things I did well and others I could have done better, so as to maximize the number of friends and minimize the number of enemies made during my time as pastor. My friend's guiding principle, which motivated him to give me the mug in the first place with the quote, his guiding principle was and always has been that it's far better to know the truth than to be consoled with a lie. The gospel this morning begins as last Sunday's gospel ended. Jesus is in his home synagogue among his friends and family. Today we read that all spoke highly of him and were amazed at the gracious words that came from his mouth. But soon those admirers would take him to the brow of a cliff and attempt to throw him over the edge to his death. They would turn on him, and they would turn on him suddenly, because Jesus told them the truth, a truth they didn't want to hear. So what was it that Jesus said that caused such rage to stir in the hearts of his listeners? He reminded them of two events in Jewish history. One was during the life of Elijah, when the prophet had come from God to a widow, and because of her faith, God saved her. The problem for his audience was that she was not Jewish. She was a Gentile. The same was true in the story of Elisha. Leprosy was a plague spreading throughout Israel, but God used a prophet of God, of himself, to save one leper, and he too was not Jewish. We may not see the significance, but for the audience listening to Jesus, it was a very painful realization. They were God's chosen people, and they believed that to be a privilege rather than a duty and an obligation to live in a particular manner. That privilege led them to believe that God reserved his love and his favor only for them, and that it was not possible for God to extend his reach beyond the chosen people, to display acts of mercy and love to others. The people thought they had a monopoly on God, that non-Jews would suffer and die outside of God's embrace. The words of Jesus deeply offended them because he was scolding them for their presumption about God's mercy and grace. The people of Israel longed and pleaded for the arrival of the Messiah, believing that this Messiah would arrive, liberate them from Roman occupation, and would preach a fiery message against all the enemies of Israel. But they were given a Messiah who would speak truth to them first, a message of required conversion of heart and mind that itself would provide ultimate liberation. While the people of Israel expected a Messiah who would change the world, this Messiah, this Jesus, who preached in the synagogue, required some change of heart from them first. I don't know about you, but I know for myself, I like to pride myself in thinking that I want to know the truth. But the truth can hurt. It can hurt when someone tells us what we don't necessarily want to hear. It can hurt when we no longer are able to ignore what is real. And it hurts when we're no longer able to excuse our actions or our inactions, to explain away our intentions, and to rationalize our failings. We tell God we want him to reveal his will to us, like the people of Israel. In our desire for holiness and in our prayers, we tell God we will do anything for him. But as Archbishop Vlasny liked to say, we had better prepare ourselves for what he will tell us. For as the saying goes, be careful for what you wish for. You may get it. And how you get it and what you get may not necessarily be in the form you wished for in the first place.